Chapter 1. The Glass Door. I should have known better than to bring Mia to the restaurant on a Thursday night. The hostess stand gleamed under amber lighting, all polished wood and leather menus stacked in perfect alignment. My daughter pressed her nose against the glass partition separating the lobby from the main dining room, her breath fogging the surface in small clouds. 6 years old, and already she could spot wealth from a mile away, not because she understood it, but because everything here looked like the dollhouse she'd begged for last Christmas, the one I couldn't afford. "Mama, look at the chandeliers." Her voice carried that hushed reverence children reserve for churches and museums. "I see them, baby." I adjusted the strap of my work bag, heavy with the paperwork I'd spent 3 weeks compiling. "Just a few more minutes, okay? Then we'll get pizza." She nodded, dark curls bouncing, and returned to her glass watching. The restaurant Carmelo's occupied the ground floor of a building that probably costs more than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes. I'd been hired to audit their books, a freelance gig that came through a friend of a friend, the kind of work that paid enough to cover Mia's dental appointment and, maybe, if I was lucky, new tires for my dying sedan. I'd left her with my neighbor twice already this week. Couldn't ask again. Couldn't afford the babysitter. So here we were, Thursday at 8:30, Mia in her school uniform because I hadn't had time to change her. Me, in my only good blazer with a coffee stain I'd tried to hide under a scarf. The manager, Antonio, mid-50s, kind eyes appeared from the back hallway. "Ms. Chen, right on time." "Sorry about," I gestured toward Mia, who'd now discovered she could make handprints on the glass. "No problem at all," but his smile tightened at the corners. Something off in the way he glanced toward the dining room. "Actually, there's been a small change. The owner wants to meet with you first, just briefly." My stomach dropped. "The owner?" "Mr. Russo. He's particular about financial matters." Russo. The name sat heavy in the air between us, weighted with implications I didn't want to examine. I'd heard whispers, of course, rumors about Carmelo's real business, about the men who came and went through the private dining rooms upstairs, about cash that moved through this place like water through a sieve. But rumors didn't pay rent, and I'd learned long ago not to ask questions that might cost me work. "Of course," I said, because what else could I say? Antonio led us through a side door I hadn't noticed on my previous visits, down a hallway lined with black and white photographs of old Italy. Mia's hand found mine, her palm small and sweaty. She sensed it too, that shift in atmosphere, the way the air grew heavier the farther we walked from the bright dining room. We stopped at a door of dark mahogany. Antonio knocked twice, paused, knocked once more. "Avanti." The voice from inside made my breath catch. Low, controlled, the kind of voice that didn't need to rise to be heard. Antonio opened the door and gestured us forward. The office was smaller than I'd expected, but infinitely more intimidating. Dark wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a desk that looked hand-carved from a single piece of walnut, and behind it, backlit by a window overlooking the rain-slicked street, sat a man who made the expensive room feel inadequate. Dante Russo. I knew it was him before anyone said a word. He was younger than I'd imagined, early 40s, maybe with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from the same marble as the building's facade. Sharp jaw, sharper eyes, the kind of beautiful that felt dangerous to look at directly. He wore a black suit with no tie, the collar of his white shirt open just enough to suggest he answered to no dress code but his own. Those eyes found mine, held, then dropped to Mia. Something flickered across his face. Surprise? Displeasure? It vanished before I could name it. "Ms. Chen." He didn't stand, didn't offer his hand. I wasn't expecting a child. "I apologize." The words came out steadier than I felt. "My babysitter fell through. It won't affect my work. Sit." Not a request. Mia climbed into the leather chair beside me, suddenly shy. Her earlier curiosity evaporated. I pulled out my laptop, my folders, trying to project a competence I didn't feel under that unwavering stare. "The preliminary audit shows," I began. "Who sent you?" The question cut through my prepared speech like a blade. "I'm sorry?" "Who sent you?" Each word deliberate, measured. to audit my books. Antonio contacted my firm. Well, I'm freelance, but I didn't authorize an audit. He leaned forward, and the light shifted across his face, revealing a thin scar along his left cheekbone. So, I'll ask once more, who sent you to look at my numbers? My mouth went dry. There must be some mistake. I have the contract. The door behind us opened without warning. A man entered, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a shoulder holster that made no pretense of concealment. He bent close to Russo's ear, whispered something that made those dark eyes narrow. Then Russo's gaze returned to me, and I saw it clearly now. Not anger, but calculation. Assessment. Ms. Chen, he said quietly, dangerously, I think you and your daughter should stay here for a while. It wasn't a suggestion. It was the moment everything shattered. Chapter 2. The Locked Room. The rain had started without me noticing. I could hear it now, drumming against the window behind Dante Russo's desk, each drop a small fist demanding entrance. Mia's hand crept into mine, her fingers cold despite the warmth of the room. The man with the holster had positioned himself by the door, arms crossed, face blank as stone. I don't understand, I said, hating how my voice wavered. If there's been a miscommunication, I can just leave. We'll go, and you can sort this out with, Antonio is dead. The words landed like a physical blow. I actually felt my body recoil, Mia's grip tightening reflexively. What? Russo's expression didn't change. He could have been commenting on the weather. Shot twice in the parking garage approximately 8 minutes ago. Whoever sent you here wanted to ensure I was distracted when it happened. My laptop slipped from my lap. The clatter seemed obscenely loud. No, I'm just an accountant. A freelance accountant. I have a daughter, The words tumbled out too fast, too desperate. Call the police. Check my credentials. I can prove the police. Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. Yes, I'm sure they'd be very helpful. Mia whimpered. The sound cut through my panic like a knife, reminding me that fear was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not with her here. Not when this man held our lives in his beautiful, terrible hands. I straightened my spine, met his gaze. Then what do you want from us? For the first time, something like respect crossed his face. Brief, but there. I want to know if you're bait or a weapon, Ms. Chen. He stood, moving around the desk with a predator's grace. Up close, he was taller than I'd realized, and the scent of him expensive cologne cut with something darker. Smoke, maybe, or gunpowder made my breath catch, for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. The contract you received? Who signed it? I. My mind raced backward through emails, phone calls, the relief I'd felt when the deposit hit my account. A woman. Rachel something. She said she was Antonio's assistant. Antonio didn't have an assistant. Russo circled behind my chair, and every instinct screamed at me not to turn around, to keep Mia in my sight, to stay perfectly still like prey beneath a hawk's shadow. He handled all hiring himself, paranoid old bastard. A pause. Was a paranoid old bastard. The man by the door's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then at Russo. Some silent communication passed between them. Marco, Russo said quietly. Take the child to the kitchen, get her something to eat. No. The word burst from me before I could think. Absolutely not. She stays with me. Russo moved back into my line of sight, crouching down so we were eye level. This close, I could see flecks of gold in his dark irises, could count the individual lashes that framed them. Could see, too, the absolute absence of mercy in their depths. You want to keep her safe? His voice dropped lower, intimate almost. Then she doesn't see what happens in this room if I decide you're lying. My heart stopped. Started. Stumbled into a rhythm that felt too fast, too loud. Mama? Mia's voice, small and frightened. I looked at my daughter. 6 years old. Still believed in fairy tales and happy endings. Still thought the world was fundamentally good because I'd worked so hard to make it seem that way. Even when we'd been evicted. Even when I'd served her cereal for dinner 3 nights running. even when her father had walked out and never looked back. "It's okay, baby." I touched her cheek, forced my hand not to shake. "Go with the nice man. I'll be right here. Just some grown-up boring talk, okay? I don't like him." She stared at Russo with a child's brutal honesty. "He has mean eyes." Something flickered across Russo's face. Surprise again, sharper this time. "Smart kid," the man by the door, Marco said. His voice was rougher than I expected, almost kind. He held out a hand to Mia. "Come on, Piccola. I think we have gelato downstairs. You like chocolate?" Mia looked at me. I nodded, dying inside. She slipped from the chair and took Marco's hand, glancing back twice as they left. The door clicked shut with a finality that felt like a tomb ceiling. Then it was just us. Me and this man who held my life, my daughter's life, in his hands like it weighed nothing at all. "Please," I whispered, "I'm telling you the truth. I don't know anything about Antonio. I thought this was just a job. I have Mia's report card in my bag, her permission slip for the field trip next week. I'm nobody. We're nobody." Russo studied me for a long moment. Then he moved to his desk, pressed something beneath the lip of the drawer. A panel in the wall slid open, revealing a screen showing multiple camera feeds. The parking garage. The kitchen, where Marco was indeed getting Mia gelato. The dining room, now being quietly evacuated by staff who moved with the efficiency of people who'd done this before. And another feed. Street level. A black sedan with tinted windows idling across from the restaurant's entrance. "They're waiting to see if you leave," Russo said. "Waiting to see if you accomplished whatever you were sent here to accomplish. Or waiting to see if you need to be eliminated as a witness." I didn't. My voice broke. "I would never. I believe you." The words stopped me cold. He turned. And for the first time, I saw something other than calculation in his face. Exhaustion, maybe, or the weight of making decisions that destroyed lives before breakfast. "Which means, Ms. Chen, that you and your daughter are now my problem." "What does that mean?" "It means," he said quietly, dangerously, "that until I find out who's trying to kill me, neither of you leaves my sight." Chapter 3. The Monstera Leaf. The safe house wasn't what I expected. I'd imagined something cold and industrial, concrete walls, barred windows, the kind of place where people disappeared. Instead, Marco pulled the car into the underground garage of a brownstone in a neighborhood I recognized from magazine spreads, the kind where hedge fund managers walked their designer dogs and argued about property taxes. "Out," Russo said from beside me. He'd ridden in the back seat, Mia between us like a tiny buffer zone. She'd fallen asleep 20 minutes ago, her head lolling against my shoulder. Gelato's sticky fingers curled in my blazer. I gathered her carefully, her weight familiar and precious. Ressa watched with an expression I couldn't read, then turned and walked toward a private elevator. Marco gestured for me to follow. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Rain streaming down the glass in silver ribbons. Everything was clean lines and expensive materials, marble countertops, leather furniture the color of caramel, art on the walls that was probably worth more than my car, but it was the plant that caught my attention. A massive monstera in the corner, its leaves split and glossy, climbing a wooden trellis that reached toward the vaulted ceiling. Someone cared for it meticulously. Each leaf perfect, no brown edges, the soil dark and rich. "Bedroom's down the hall," Russo said, shrugging out of his jacket. Beneath it, I could see the shoulder holster now, the gun black and brutal against his white shirt. "Second door. Put her down." I hesitated. Every maternal instinct screamed at me not to let Mia out of my sight. Not in this place, not with these men. "Ms. Chen." Russo's voice was softer now, almost gentle. "Almost. I'm not going to hurt a child. Whatever you think I am, I'm not that." "What are you, then?" The question hung between us. Marco had disappeared somewhere, leaving us alone in the too beautiful living room with rain hammering at the windows like it wanted in. Russo moved to a bar cart, poured amber liquid into a crystal tumbler. "What do you think I am?" Dangerous. Good. That means you're not stupid. He took a drink, his throat working. I watched and hated myself for noticing. But I meant what I said. Your daughter is safe here. Safer than she'd be anywhere else in this city right now. I didn't move. Couldn't. Mia's weight in my arms was the only real thing in a day that had dissolved into nightmare. Russo sighed, set down his glass, and walked toward me. I tensed, but he only reached out and gently brushed a curl back from Mia's forehead. His fingers were careful, reverent almost. For just a moment his face softened into something that looked almost human. I had a sister, he said quietly. Once. She was 7. Had, past tense. The word landed heavy. Second door, he repeated, stepping back. There are clothes in the closet, should be something that fits. Bathroom's attached. Lock the door if it makes you feel better. The permission to lock the door, that small allowance of control, broke something in me. I nodded and carried Mia down the hallway, my legs shaking. The bedroom was pristine. A king-size bed with white linens, more windows showing the city's glittering sprawl. A dresser made of what looked like reclaimed wood. I laid Mia on the bed, removed her shoes, pulled the duvet over her small body. She didn't wake, just burrowed deeper into the pillow with a contented sigh that made my chest ache. I should run, should grab her and find a fire escape, a back exit, something. But where would we go? If Russo was right, if someone was watching, waiting, we'd be dead before we made it 3 blocks. And if he was lying, if this was all some elaborate trap, then we were dead anyway. I locked the door, sat on the edge of the bed, watched my daughter's chest rise and fall with each peaceful breath while my own heart tried to claw its way out of my throat. A soft knock. I jumped. Ms. Chin. Russo's voice muffled by the door. I need you to answer some questions. Can't it wait? No. I glanced at Mia, still sleeping. Then reluctantly unlocked the door. Russo stood in the hallway holding a laptop and a thick manila folder. He'd removed the holster, rolled up his shirt sleeves. Somehow that made him more intimidating, not less the suggestion of normal domesticity wrapped around something fundamentally dangerous. Living room, he said. I followed him back, hyper-aware of the space between us, the way he moved with absolute certainty through his territory. He set the laptop on the coffee table and gestured for me to sit. The woman who hired you, Rachel. Describe her. I closed my eyes, reaching back through memory. Blonde. Shoulder length. She wore red lipstick. Had a mole here. I touched my left cheek. Professional, kinda warm actually. Made jokes about accounting being sexy. Russo opened the folder. Spread photographs across the table. Women. Dozens of them. Some professional headshots, others grainy surveillance images. See her? I scanned the faces and my stomach dropped. 3rd row. That's her. Russo's jaw tightened. He pulled the photo out, flipped it over. A name was written on the back in neat block letters. Sophia Marchetti. Marchetti, I whispered. Even I knew that name. But why would? Because 20 years ago I killed her father. He said it flatly, like he was commenting on the weather, and apparently, she's been waiting a very long time to return the favor. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something raw in his expression. Not quite vulnerability, but close, an acknowledgement of the weight we now shared. So you see, Ms. Chen, he said quietly, you didn't just walk into my restaurant tonight, you walked into a war. Outside, the monstera's leaves cast shadows on the wall, perfect and split and reaching toward light they'd never touch. Chapter 4. The photograph. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Antonio's kind face, tried not to imagine what 2 bullets had done to it, tried not to think about Sophia Marchetti sitting across from me in that coffee shop 3 weeks ago, smiling while she handed me a death sentence wrapped in contract terms. Mia stirred around 5, reaching for me in the pre-dawn darkness. I pulled her close, breathed in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, and pretended the world outside this room didn't exist. It was a lie that lasted approximately 30 seconds. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a number I didn't recognize. Against every instinct, I answered. Ms. Chen. Sophia's voice, warm and professional, exactly as I remembered. I hope you and your daughter had a pleasant evening. My blood turned to ice. How did you... I know where you are. I know what you're wearing. I know that Mia has her stuffed rabbit tucked under her left arm. A pause. Wave to the camera, Lily. I lunged for the window, scanning the buildings across the street. Mia woke fully now, startled by my sudden movement. Mama? The brownstone with the green awning, Sophia continued. 3rd floor. I have to admit, I'm impressed. Russo moved fast. He must like you. What do you want? My voice came out steady despite the terror clawing at my throat. I want you to finish the job I paid you for. I'm an accountant. You're a woman with a 6-year-old daughter and $17,000 in debt. Her voice hardened. You're a woman who will do exactly what I tell her if she wants that little girl to see her 7th birthday. The bedroom door opened. Russo stood there in different clothes, dark jeans, a black sweater, looking like he hadn't slept either. His eyes found mine, then the phone in my hand. Understanding flickered across his face. There's a safe in his study, Sophia said. Combination is his sister's birthday. Get me what's inside, walk out the front door, and you're free. You have 12 hours. The line went dead. Russo crossed the room in 3 strides, took the phone from my shaking hand, and hurled it against the wall. It shattered, pieces scattering across the hardwood floor like broken teeth. Mama. Mia scrambled backward on the bed, eyes wide with fear. I'm sorry. Russo's voice was rough. He looked at Mia, then at me, and I saw him visibly force himself to calm. I'm sorry. That was necessary. They were tracking the call. She knows we're here, I whispered. She's watching us. I know. He moved to the window, peered out with practiced efficiency. Marco's sweeping for cameras now, but she's right about one thing. We need to move. His sister's birthday, I said. The words felt wrong in my mouth, intrusive. She said, I heard. Something dark passed over his face. Maria. February 14th. She thought it was romantic, being born on Valentine's Day. He turned back to me. What does Marchetti want from the safe? She didn't say. But you're going to find out for me. Not a question. An expectation. I should have been terrified, should have refused, but looking at him standing there in the gray morning light, I saw past the danger to something else. Exhaustion. Grief. The weight of carrying his dead sister's birthday around like a combination to his own destruction. Yes, I heard myself say, Mama, I'm hungry. Mia's small voice cut through the tension. Can we have pancakes? Russo's expression shifted. Something almost soft entered it. I don't make pancakes, but Marco does. Come on, Piccola. He held out his hand to her. Mia looked at me for permission. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She took his hand, small, pale fingers disappearing into his larger, scarred ones, and let him lead her out. I followed them to the kitchen, where Marco was indeed making pancakes, the domestic normalcy of it so jarring I almost laughed. Mia climbed onto a bar stool, swinging her legs, and Marco handed her a spatula like they'd done this 100 times before. Flip when the bubbles stay, he instructed seriously. Russo pulled me aside, into a pantry that smelled like coffee and expensive olive oil. The space was too small, forcing us close. I could feel the heat of him, see the pulse jumping in his throat. I need to know I can trust you, he said quietly. You're holding my daughter hostage. Do you really have a choice? I'm not holding her hostage. I'm keeping her alive. His hand came up, fingers curling around my jaw, tilting my face to his. The touch was gentle, but unyielding. But if you're playing me, if this is some elaborate setup, I need to know now, because I can't. He stopped, started again. I won't let another little girl die because I trusted the wrong person. In the kitchen, Mia laughed at something Marco said. The sound was so normal, so beautiful, so impossible given our circumstances that it nearly broke me. I'm not playing you, I whispered. I just want my daughter safe. Then we want the same thing. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone and I realized I was crying. When had I started crying? He wiped the tears away with a tenderness that felt more dangerous than any gun, any threat, any locked room. The safe, I said, desperate to break whatever was building between us. What's in it? Russo's hand dropped. He stepped back, and the loss of his touch felt like cold water. Proof, he said, that the Marchetti family has been laundering money through half the city's infrastructure. That Sophia's father wasn't just a rival, he was a partner who got greedy. His eyes met mine, and proof that when I killed him, it wasn't murder. It was self-defense. It was survival. Through the doorway, I could see Mia carefully flipping a pancake, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. My daughter, my whole world. Sitting in a mobster's kitchen like it was the most natural thing in the world. Show me the safe, I said. Russo smiled. It wasn't a kind expression. Now you're thinking like someone who might actually survive this. Chapter 5. The Study. The study was a shrine to controlled violence. Russo led me there after breakfast. After Mia had been settled in front of a television with cartoons and Marco standing guard like some kind of deadly babysitter. The room was all dark wood and leather, bookshelves lined with first editions, a desk that looked like it had witnessed confessions and condemnations in equal measure. But it was the photographs that stopped me. They lined one wall black and white images in expensive frames. A young Russo, maybe 10, standing beside a beautiful woman with his same dark eyes, the sister, Maria. In another, he was older, teenage sullenness replaced by something harder, and in the last one, he stood alone, wearing a suit too expensive for his age, his eyes already holding that particular emptiness I'd come to recognize. I was 19 when they killed her, Russo said from behind me. He'd been watching me study the photographs. Sophia's father. He wanted to send a message to mine, thought killing a little girl would make my father bend. It didn't. No. It made him declare war. He moved past me to the wall, pressed something behind one of the frames. A panel slid back, revealing a safe the size of a small refrigerator. He died 6 months later. Heart attack. Left me everything: the business, the territory, the blood debt. How old were you? 20. He glanced at me. Same age you were when you had Mia, I'm guessing. The accuracy of it startled me. How did you... I had Marco run a background check while you slept. Or didn't sleep. His fingers moved over the safe's keypad. Lily Chen, 26, community college dropout. Father unknown on the birth certificate. Mother died when you were 16. Foster care until 18. Got pregnant at 19. Kept the baby. Worked 3 jobs to keep her fed and clothed. He paused. No criminal record. No family. No one who'd miss you if you disappeared. The words should have terrified me. Instead, they just made me tired. Is that supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be honest. He entered the combination DO214, and the safe clicked open. Maria would have liked you. She had a thing for strays. I'm not a stray. No. He pulled out a leather portfolio, thick with documents. You're a survivor. There's a difference. He spread the contents across his desk. Financial records, photographs of men in expensive suits, ledgers filled with numbers that made my accountant's brain start automatically calculating. And there, in the middle of it all, a photograph of a younger Sophia Marchetti standing beside her father at what looked like a charity gala. She was beautiful, 18, maybe 19, wearing a white dress that probably cost more than my annual rent. But it was her eyes that caught me. They held the same emptiness as Russo's, the same recognition that the world was fundamentally broken, and you either broke with it or learned to navigate the pieces. She was there, I said slowly, when you killed him. Russo's silence was answer enough. How old? 17. He touched the photograph, just barely. I didn't know she was in the building. By the time I realized, it was too late. She saw everything. And now she wants revenge. Now she wants what I took from her. A father. A future. A version of herself that didn't spend 8 years in psychiatric facilities learning how to function after watching someone blow her father's head open. His voice was flat, clinical. Can't say I blame her. I looked at him and saw the guilt there, buried beneath layers of control and expensive clothing. He carried Maria's death. He carried Giovanni Marchetti's death. He probably carried 100 other deaths I'd never know about. The documents, I said, forcing myself back to practical matters. They prove the Marchetti family is guilty too? They prove we were all guilty. Him, me, half the city council. Russo picked up a specific folder, handed it to me. But this is what Sophia really wants. Evidence that her father was planning to kill mine anyway. That what I did was just faster, cleaner. That in our world, I had every right. I opened the folder. Bank transfers. Recorded conversations. A contract with a hitman's signature at the bottom, dated 3 days before Giovanni Marchetti died. You've had this the whole time, I said. Why didn't you? Because releasing it means admitting what I am, what we all are. He leaned against the desk, close enough that I could smell his cologne again, that dangerous combination of civilization and violence. The moment this goes public, every deal I've made, every legitimate business I've built, it all collapses. I become what everyone already suspects a killer who inherited a kingdom built on blood. And if you don't give it to her, she kills you. Kills Mia eventually. His eyes found mine. Burns down everything I've spent 15 years trying to build into something clean. The weight of it settled between us. My daughter's life. His empire. Sophia's revenge. All of it balanced on documents spread across a dead man's desk. There has to be another way, I said. There isn't. Then we make one. Russo's eyebrow lifted. We? You said I'm a survivor. I gathered the documents, my hands steadier than they had any right to be. So let me survive this. Let me find a way to give Sophia what she needs without destroying everything. You're an accountant, not a miracle worker. I'm a single mother who kept a child alive on minimum wage and hope. I met his gaze. I'm very good at impossible math. For the first time since I'd met him, Dante Russo smiled. A real smile, not the dangerous thing he'd shown before, but something almost human. Almost warm. Okay, Lily Chen. He said my name like he was tasting it. Show me your miracle. Outside the study, I heard Mia's laughter carrying down the hallway, bright and oblivious. I had 12 hours to save her. I had a mobster's trust and a dead girl's birthday. It would have to be enough. Chapter 6. The rain and the reach numbers had always made sense to me in a way people never did. Numbers didn't lie. They didn't leave in the middle of the night. They didn't promise forever and deliver 3 months. Numbers were clean, rational, beautiful in their absolute certainty. But these numbers were different. These numbers had blood on them. I'd been at Russo's desk for 3 hours, Mia coloring in the corner with markers Marco had produced from somewhere, humming to herself while I traced the flow of dirty money through shell corporations and offshore accounts. Russo sat across from me, watching with an intensity that should have made me uncomfortable but instead felt oddly steadying. Here. I circled a transaction dated 6 months before Giovanni Marchetti's death. He moved $15 million through a construction company that doesn't exist, but the permits were filed under Sophia's name. Russo leaned forward, studying the document. Our heads were close enough that I could see the individual threads of silver at his temples, could feel his breath on my cheek when he spoke. She knew, he said quietly. Even then, she knew what her father was. More than that. I pulled up another file, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Look at the dates. She started moving money out of the family accounts 2 weeks after you killed him. Small amounts. Untraceable. She's been planning this for years. Planning what, though? Russo's hand came to rest on the desk beside mine, close enough to touch. If she just wanted me dead, she's had 1,000 opportunities. Sophia's patient. Methodical. This is about more than revenge. It's about legitimacy. The pieces clicked together in my head, that beautiful moment when numbers revealed their hidden story. She wants the documents because they prove her father was dirty, which means she can claim she didn't know, that she's been cleaning up his mess, not continuing it. She gets revenge, gets clean, and gets to rebuild the Marchetti Empire without the stain, using me as the scapegoat, using you as the villain everyone expects you to be anyway. The words hung between us. Russo stared at me, something shifting behind his eyes. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. It was a harsh sound, rusty, like he didn't use it often. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. People usually are, I said, when you bother to look past what you need them to be. His hand moved, covering mine on the desk. The touch was warm, deliberate. And what do you need me to be, Lily? The question felt loaded, dangerous. In the corner, Mia had abandoned her coloring and was watching us with the uncanny perception children have for adult tension. I need you to keep your promise, I said quietly, that my daughter stays safe. That's all? No? God, no. I needed him to be something other than what he was. Needed this situation to be something other than impossible. Needed my hands not to shake when he touched me. Needed my breath not to catch when he said my name in that low, dangerous voice. But those were wants, not needs, and I'd learned long ago the difference. That's all, I lied. Rousseau's thumb traced across my knuckles. Once, twice. Then he pulled away, stood, walked to the window. Rain still fell, turning the world beyond the glass into watercolor smears. My father used to say that, in our world, there are only two types of people, he said. Those who take power and those who have it taken from them. He taught me to be the first, to never hesitate, never show weakness, never let anyone close enough to see the soft places. He sounds like he was a terrible father. He was a practical one. Rousseau's reflection in the glass was ghostly, insubstantial. When Maria died, I promised myself I'd never let anything matter that much again. Never give anyone that leverage. But then a woman walks into my restaurant with a 6-year-old and a laptop, and suddenly I'm breaking every rule I've ever made. He turned, and the look on his face stole my breath. Raw. Unguarded. You scare me, Lily Chen. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and whatever softness had been there vanished, replaced by cold calculation. Marco found 3 cameras, all broadcasting to an IP address registered to a property Sophia owns in Queens. He was already moving, gathering documents, his whole body shifting into combat readiness. She's not watching from across the street. She's watching from 30 miles away. Which means she has people here. In the building. Maybe in this apartment. His eyes found Mia. We need to leave. Now. Where can we go that she won't find us? Somewhere she'd never think to look. He grabbed a leather jacket from behind the door, tossed me a set of keys, somewhere I swore I'd never go back to. The apartment door burst open. Marco stumbled in, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. Behind him, 2 men in dark suits, guns already raised. Rousseau moved faster than should have been possible. He had his own gun out, fired twice, and both men went down before I could even scream. The sound was deafening in the confined space, Mia's shriek cutting through the ringing in my ears. Lily, grab her. Rousseau's voice, sharp and commanding. Fire escape, now. I ran to Mia, scooped her up. She was crying, shaking, her small body rigid with terror. Marco was already at the window, forcing it open despite the blood making his hands slick. Go, Rousseau said. He wasn't looking at us. His eyes were on the hallway, waiting for more. Marco will get you to the car. Take the documents. Don't stop. What about you? He glanced back then. Just for a moment. In his eyes, I saw goodbye forming. Dante. His name escaped before I could stop it. Go, he repeated. Softer this time. Almost gentle. Trust me. Marco grabbed my arm, pulled me toward the window. The last thing I saw before he pushed us through was Rousseau standing alone in his beautiful apartment, gun raised, facing whatever was coming down that hallway. Then we were in the rain, and everything was chaos and cold and the weight of my daughter in my arms as we ran. Chapter 7. The Church. The car Marco shoved us into was nondescript gray sedan that could have belonged to anyone. Mia was hysterical, clinging to me, her screams muffled against my chest. My hands shook so badly I could barely fasten her seatbelt. "Is he dead?" I asked. My voice sounded distant, hollow. "Is Dante, boss can handle himself?" Marco's face was grim, blood still trickling down his temple. He pulled into traffic with a screech of tires. "Your job is to stay alive long enough for him to finish this." "Finish what?" There were at least 6 men. There were 8. He knew they were coming. Marco took a corner too fast, and I grabbed the door handle. The cameras weren't a discovery, they were bait. He used us. The realization hit like ice water. He used me and Mia as bait to draw them out. He used himself. Marco's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. "You were the excuse he needed to be home, to control the battlefield. Those men are walking into a trap, not an ambush." I wanted to feel betrayed, wanted to rage at being manipulated, but all I felt was a strange, desperate hope that Marco was right, that somewhere back in that brownstone, Dante Russo was still breathing. "Mama, I want to go home." Mia's voice was small, broken. "Please, I want to go home." "I know, baby, I know." I kissed her hair, tasted salt from my own tears. "Soon, I promise." Another lie. I was getting good at those. Marco drove for 20 minutes, checking mirrors, doubling back, taking turns that seemed random until I realized he was checking for tails. Finally, he pulled up in front of a church-old stone, Gothic spires, completely out of place among the modern buildings surrounding it. "St. Catherine's," he said. "Boss grew up 2 blocks from here. Used to hide here when his old man got mean. He killed the engine. Marchetti's people won't think to look here. Too obvious, too sentimental. And Dante, we'll find you when it's done." Marco's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and some tension left his shoulders. "He's alive, moving, 5 down, 3 running, 5 down, 5 men dead, because of me. Because I'd walked into that restaurant with my daughter and a laptop and accidentally stepped into someone else's war." "Inside," Marco ordered. "Back pew. Don't talk to anyone, I'll be outside." The church was empty except for an old woman lighting candles near the altar. Mia had stopped crying, gone silent and pale in that way children do when terror exhausts them. I carried her to the back pew Marco had indicated, settled her against my side, and stared at the stained glass windows catching afternoon light. Mary looked down at me, beatific and serene, baby Jesus in her arms. A mother and child, safe, protected. Everything I couldn't give Mia. "I'm sorry," I whispered to my daughter. To Mary, to God if he was listening. "I'm so sorry." Mia's hand found mine. "Is the man with the mean eyes going to die?" "I don't know. I don't want him to die." Her voice was fierce, surprising. "He makes good hot chocolate." A laugh burst from me, half sob. "When did he make you hot chocolate?" "This morning. While you were sleeping. He put the little marshmallows in it and told me about his sister. She liked marshmallows too." Mia looked up at me with those 2 old eyes. "He's sad, Mama. Like you are sometimes. When you think I'm not looking." Before I could respond, the church door opened. I tensed, ready to run, but it was Russo who walked in. He moved stiffly, favoring his left side, his white shirt torn and stained with blood, some his, some not. His eyes found us immediately, and the relief that crossed his face was so raw it hurt to witness. He crossed to our pew, slid in beside us. Up close, I could see the cuts on his knuckles, the bruise forming along his jaw, the way his breathing was shallow and careful. "You're hurt," I said stupidly. "I'm alive." His hand came up, cupped my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone. "You're alive. That's what matters. The document's safe. Marco has them." His eyes moved to Mia. "Hey, Piccola, you okay?" Mia nodded, then did something that shocked us both. She climbed over me and into his lap, wrapping her small arms around his neck. Russo froze, every muscle going rigid. He looked at me. Something like panic in his eyes, like he'd forgotten how to hold something fragile. "It's okay," I mouthed. Slowly, carefully, his arms came around her. One hand cradled her head, the other spread across her small back. He closed his eyes, and I watched something crack in him. Some wall he'd built 15 years ago when his sister died. "You're okay," he murmured into Mia's hair. "You're safe. I promise. I promise." The old woman at the altar glanced back at us, smiled, and returned to her candles. Just another family seeking sanctuary. Just another father comforting his frightened child. Except he wasn't her father, and we weren't a family. And the blood on his shirt was proof that safety was an illusion we couldn't afford. "Sophia called," Russo said quietly, still holding Mia. "After. She knows the men failed. She's offering a meeting. That's good, right? We can negotiate. It's a trap." His eyes opened, met mine over Mia's head. "But it's also the only way this ends. One of us walks away. The other doesn't. There has to be another option. There isn't." His hand tightened on Mia. "But I need you to know something first. Before whatever happens, tonight happens. Dante, I haven't felt human in 15 years. The words came out rough, unpolished. Not since Maria. Not since I became what my father needed me to be. But these past 12 hours, watching you fight for your daughter, watching you refuse to break even when any sane person would have." He stopped. Started again. "You make me remember what it felt like before, when I was just a kid who believed in things." "Don't," I whispered. "Don't say goodbye. I'm not." He shifted Mia gently, passed her back to me, stood. "I'm saying thank you for reminding me what I'm supposed to be protecting." He walked toward the altar, knelt, crossed himself, and I realized with a jolt that he was praying. Outside, the rain had finally stopped, but the storm was just beginning. Chapter 8. The Pier Sophia chose the old pier on the east side, the one the city had abandoned after Hurricane Sandy turned it into twisted metal and splintered wood. Marco drove us there at sunset, the sky bleeding orange and purple over the water, like a wound that wouldn't close. Mia was asleep again in my arms. Marco had given her something, he'd said, just a mild sedative. Enough to keep her calm, keep her safe from whatever was about to happen. I'd wanted to refuse, wanted to rage at the idea of drugging my child. But Russo had looked at me with those dark eyes and said, "Better she sleeps through this than remembers it." He was right. God help me, he was right. "She's already there," Marco said, peering through binoculars. 4 men with her. Maybe more in the warehouse. "Let me go alone," I said. It was the 10th time I'd offered. "She wants the documents. I'll give them to her. You and Mia disappear. She has no reason to hurt me once she has what she wants." Russo turned from the passenger seat. The setting sun caught his profile, making him look like something carved from shadow and dying light. "She has every reason. You've seen her face. You know what she's planning. The moment you hand over those files, you become a liability." "Then what's the plan?" "The plan is you stay in the car with Marco and Mia. I go out there. I end this. By killing her. By giving her a choice." He checked his gun, the movement practiced and automatic. Walk away or die. Same choice her father had. Same choice he made wrong. And if she chooses wrong too? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Marco's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, swore softly in Italian. "She says she knows the girls in the car. Says she'll start shooting in 60 seconds if Lily doesn't walk out there." My blood froze. "How does she drone?" Marco pointed to a small shape hovering above us, barely visible in the dimming light. "Thermal imaging. She can see all of us." Russo's jaw clenched. "Marco, take Mia. Get her underground. The old subway tunnel 2 blocks south. She can't track heat through concrete. Boss now." Marco didn't argue. He took Mia from my arms with surprising gentleness, and I watched my daughter, my whole world, disappear into the twilight with a man who killed people for a living. The trust required for that moment nearly shattered me. "Lily." Russo's hand found mine. "When this is over, don't." I squeezed his fingers. Don't say things you might not be alive to take back. Something that might have been a smile flickered across his face. Fair enough. He opened the car door, paused. For what it's worth, you would have made a terrible accountant for me. You ask too many questions. For what it's worth, you would have made a terrible client. You hide too many bodies. The laugh that escaped him was surprised, genuine. Then he was gone, walking across the broken pier toward Sophia Marchetti and whatever ending she'd written for us. I lasted exactly 15 seconds before I followed him. The pier groaned under my feet. Wood soft with rot and salt damage. Ahead, I could see Sophia clearly, now blonde hair pulled back, wearing a white pantsuit that seemed deliberately chosen for its contrast to the decay around her. Her men flanked her, weapons visible but not raised. She saw me approach behind Russo and smiled. Ms. Chen, how persistent. I'm beginning to understand why Dante keeps you close. Let her go back to the car, Russo said. His voice was calm, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. This is between us. Is it? Sophia's eyes moved between us, assessing. Because from where I stand, she's very much part of this. Tell me, Lily, did he make you promises? That he'd protect you? Keep your daughter safe? She took a step closer. My father made me promises too. He said we were building something legitimate. Something clean. Something that would outlast the violence. Your father was planning to murder mine, Russo said flatly. The documents prove it. The documents prove we were all guilty. Sophia's composure cracked slightly. You, him, every man who's ever run this city on blood money and call it business. The only difference is you were faster, more brutal, more willing to kill a man in front of his daughter. I didn't know you were there. But would it have mattered? Her voice rose, years of controlled rage finally breaking through. Would you have waited? Would you have shown him mercy? Or would you have killed him anyway because that's what your father taught you to do? The question hung in the air. Russo didn't answer, and his silence was answer enough. I'm not here for revenge, Sophia said finally. Not really. I'm here because I'm tired of pretending to be something I'm not, tired of cleaning up the mess you all made while acting like my hands are spotless. She pulled out a gun, held it loosely at her side. So here's my offer. Give me the documents. Walk away. Pretend none of this happened. Or you kill us both and take them anyway, I finished. Or that. She smiled, and it was sad, almost. For what it's worth, I didn't want to involve your daughter. That was distasteful. Necessary, but distasteful. Necessary, I repeated. The word tasted like ash. You threatened a 6-year-old child because it was necessary. I did what I had to do to survive. Same as you, same as him. Her eyes hardened. Same as anyone who's ever been backed into a corner by forces bigger than themselves. Then maybe, I said slowly, the idea forming even as I spoke, we stopped backing each other into corners. Both of them stared at me. Behind Sophia, her men shifted, uncertain. What are you suggesting? Russo asked carefully. I looked at the documents in my bag. At Sophia with her father's ghost. At Russo with his sisters. At the city spreading out behind us, built on bargains and blood and bodies no one bothered counting anymore. I'm suggesting, I said, that maybe the accountant has a better solution than murder. Chapter 9. The Ledger. The warehouse behind the pier smelled like rust and rotting fish, but at least it was private. Sophia's men had done a sweep. Checked for wires, cameras, anyone stupid enough to be hiding in the shadows. Then it was just the three of us, Sophia, on one side of a warped wooden table, Russo on the other, me standing between them like a mediator at the world's most dangerous divorce. I spread the documents across the table. Bank records, ledgers, photographs. Years of criminal enterprise laid bare under a single flickering bulb. Here's what I see, I said, falling into the familiar rhythm of analysis, letting numbers calm the terror still singing through my veins. Giovanni Marchetti moved over $200 million through shell corporations between 2008 and 2010. Resso Enterprises, your legitimate holdings, I nodded at Dante. We're used as cover for about 60% of that. But the interesting part is here. I pulled out a specific ledger, one I'd been studying while Marco drove. Sophia, you started your own company 3 months before your father died. Clean money, legal investments, and you've been systematically separating yourself from family assets ever since. I looked at her. You've spent 8 years building exactly what you claimed you wanted, legitimacy. So, her voice was wary. So you don't actually need these documents. You're already clean. I turned to Russo. But he does. Because without proof that Giovanni was planning to kill first, Dante's just a murderer who inherited an empire. With them, he's a man who acted in self-defense and has spent 15 years trying to go legitimate. What's your point? Russo asked quietly. My point is, you both want the same thing, to escape what your fathers built, to be something other than what you inherited. I pulled out my laptop, fingers flying across the keys. So stop trying to destroy each other and destroy the system instead. I'm listening, Sophia said slowly. I opened a new spreadsheet, my element, my domain. The documents prove both families were dirty. They also prove dozens of politicians, judges, and cops were on the payroll. If we release everything, not selectively, but everything, we don't just take down one family. We take down the entire infrastructure that let this happen. That's insane, Russo said flatly. Half the city's power structure would collapse. Yes, I met his eyes, and in the chaos, both of you could walk away, co-opting witnesses who helped expose corruption. You'd have to give up the criminal enterprises, but the legitimate businesses, those could survive, maybe even thrive without the baggage. I'd lose everything my father built, Russo said. You'd lose everything your father corrupted, I corrected. The restaurants, the real estate, the investments, those were always legitimate. It's just the shadow business that needs to die. Sophia was studying me with new intensity. You're talking about scorched earth, burning down decades of carefully built power structures. I'm talking about freedom. I gestured at the documents. Right now, you're both prisoners of your father's choices, their violence, their version of what power looks like. This way, you get to choose what comes next. And what about you? Russo's question was sharp. What do you get out of this? I get my daughter back. I get to go home. I get to stop being a pawn in someone else's war. I closed the laptop. I get to stop watching people I caught myself. People die for something that started before they were even born. The almost confession hung in the air. Russo's eyes darkened, understanding flickering there. There's a problem, Sophia said finally. Even if we wanted to cooperate, and I'm not saying I do the moment this information goes public, both our families become targets. Every rival, every ambitious lieutenant, everyone who's been waiting for weakness would move against us. That's why it can't come from either of you. I pulled out my phone, the burner Marco had given me. It comes from me. Anonymous tip to the FBI from a forensic accountant who stumbled onto corruption during a routine audit. I'm nobody. No family connections, no ulterior motives, just someone who found something and did the right thing. They'd never believe it, Russo said, but his voice lacked conviction. They would if the evidence was perfect. I looked between them. And I'm very good at making evidence perfect. It's literally what I do for a living. Sophia laughed a brittle, exhausted sound. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met or the most naive. I'm a single mother who's survived 6 years on minimum wage and sheer stubbornness. I met her gaze. I'm neither brave nor naive. I'm practical. This is the only solution where everyone lives. Russo stood, paced to the window. Outside, night had fully fallen, the city lights reflecting off black water. If we do this, he said slowly, I'd have to give testimony, real testimony, about everything. We both would, Sophia agreed. She looked at me. You understand what you're asking. We'd be betraying every oath we ever made, every loyalty. You'd be choosing life over legacy, I said. There's a difference. The silence stretched. Somewhere in the distance, a ship's horn sounded low, mournful. like the city itself mourning what was about to die. "I want guarantees," Sophia said finally. "Witness protection, new identities, for both of us." "Done," I said, though I had no authority to promise anything. "And her daughter stays safe," Russo added, turning from the window. "Whatever happens, Mia Chen doesn't pay for our choices." Obviously, they looked at each other across the table. Two people raised in violence, shaped by trauma, carrying their father's sins like stones. Then slowly, Sophia extended her hand. Russo stared at it for a long moment. Then he took it. "For the record," Sophia said quietly, "I really would have killed you." "I know," Russo replied. "I was counting on it. Something that might have been respect passed between them." I pulled out my phone and started typing. An email to the FBI tip line, another to the New York Times, a third to the Justice Department. "Last chance to change your minds," I said, finger hovering over send. Neither of them spoke. I pressed send. The world as they knew it began to end at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in a rotting warehouse that smelled like fish and rust and possibility. Chapter 10. The Aftermath. 3 months later, I stood in the kitchen of an apartment I could actually afford, watching Mia draw at the table while pasta boiled on the stove. The news played on the small television mounted above the counter. Another indictment. Another politician caught in the widening net of what the media had dubbed the Marchetti-Russo revelations. 47 arrests so far, more coming. The entire power structure of the city's underworld collapsed like a house of cards, exactly as I'd predicted. Orchestrated. Destroyed. I still wasn't sure which verb fit best. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, Channel 7. 5 minutes. I switched channels. A press conference. FBI officials at a podium announcing that Sophia Marchetti had been placed in witness protection after providing crucial testimony. Her location would remain classified. Her cooperation had been invaluable. She'd gotten her freedom, her clean slate, her chance to be someone other than Giovanni Marchetti's daughter. I wondered if she'd taken up gardening, something quiet and living and far from blood. The doorbell rang. Mia looked up from her drawing a house with too many windows and a garden full of flowers that didn't exist in nature. "I'll get it, baby." Through the peephole, I saw him. My heart did that stupid thing it had been doing for 3 months, stuttering, racing, forgetting how to maintain a steady rhythm. I opened the door. Dante Russo stood in the hallway wearing jeans and a leather jacket, looking nothing like the man in the expensive suits who'd held my life in his hands on a Thursday night that felt like a lifetime ago. His hair was longer, less controlled. He'd grown a beard short, neat, but present. It softened him, made him look almost ordinary. Almost. "Hi," he said. "Hi." We stared at each other like teenagers, awkward and uncertain. Nothing like the desperate, dangerous connection we'd forged in blood and documents and impossible choices. "Is this a bad time?" "No. Come in." I stepped back. "We're just having pasta. There's plenty." He entered carefully, like the space might shatter if he moved too quickly. Mia saw him and squealed an actual squeal of delight, abandoning her drawing to run and throw herself at his legs. "Dante, you came back." He caught her, lifted her up, with the ease of practice. Over the past 3 months, he'd visited 7 times, never staying long, never explaining where he'd been or where he was going next, just appearing like a ghost, spending an hour or 2 with Mia, teaching her card tricks or telling her stories about his sister, then vanishing again before I could ask the questions burning in my chest. "I came back," he confirmed, settling her on his hip. "You been good for your mama?" "Mostly," Mia grinned. "I only got 1 yellow card this month." "Better than 2. He set her down. "Go finish your drawing. I need to talk to your mom." She ran back to the table, and we were alone in the small kitchen with steam rising from the pot and the weight of everything unsaid pressing down like a physical force. "Coffee?" I asked, because I didn't know what else to offer. "Please." I poured 2 cups, handed him 1. Our fingers brushed, and the electricity of it nearly made me drop the mug. 3 months of distance, and his touch still felt like lightning. "I testified yesterday. he said quietly. Final deposition. It's done. And I'm officially no longer Dante Russo, head of Russo Enterprises. He took a sip of coffee, grimaced at the cheap brew. I'm Daniel Ross, consultant. Clean background check, no criminal record. No family ties to organized crime. Witness protection, voluntary disappearance. Legally dead in the old life. Legally born in the new one. His eyes found mine. Turns out your accountant magic worked. The legitimate businesses survived. I sold them, invested the proceeds. And now I'm just another guy with money and no interesting past. That must feel strange. It feels like I can breathe for the first time in 15 years. He set down the mug. I wanted to thank you for showing me there was another way. You don't have to thank me. You saved our lives. You saved mine first. He stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell his cologne different now. Lighter, less expensive. Close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Lily, I know I have no right to ask this. I know what I am, what I was. I know you have every reason to want me gone from your life. But, my voice came out barely above a whisper. But I can't stop thinking about you. About Mia. About the life I watched you build from nothing with just sheer stubborn will. His hand came up, cupped my face with the same gentleness he'd shown that first morning in the brownstone. I want to be part of that, if you'll let me. Not as protection, not as obligation. Just as what? As a man who loves you. The words fell between us, raw and unpolished. Who's loved you since you stood in that office and refused to break even when breaking would have been easier? Who wants to teach your daughter terrible jokes and make you coffee that doesn't taste like dishwater, and maybe, if you'll let me, build something real? Something clean. My breath caught. Tears burned behind my eyes. Dantale, he corrected softly. Dante Russo is dead. I'd like to try being someone better. I thought about the past 3 months, the therapy sessions I'd started, the nightmares that were finally fading, the way Mia asked about him every day. When was he coming back? Did he still like marshmallows? Would he teach her more card tricks? I thought about the man who'd held my daughter while she cried in a church, who'd walked into gunfire to keep us safe, who'd given up everything he'd ever known because I showed him another path. Okay, I whispered. Okay, Daniel Ross. I smiled through the tears. Let's try building something real. He kissed me then, soft and careful and full of promise. Not the desperate kiss of survival, but the tentative, first touch of something that might become forever. Behind us, Mia made gagging sounds. Gross. Mama's kissing the man with the mean eyes. Dante Daniel pulled back, laughing. Still mean? Mia considered. Maybe just medium mean now. I'll take it. We ate pasta at the small table, made terrible jokes, played cards, did dishes together while Mia sang made-up songs about dragons and princesses. It was ordinary, domestic, simple. It was everything. Later, after Mia was asleep, we sat on the tiny balcony overlooking the street. Daniel's arm around my shoulders, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat steady and strong and alive. Thank you, he said quietly, for seeing who I could be instead of just who I was. Thank you, I replied, for keeping your promise, that my daughter would stay safe. Always. He pressed a kiss to my hair. Both of you. Always. In the distance, the city glittered full of secrets and sins and second chances. We'd paid for ours in blood and documents and impossible courage. But we'd paid, and now, finally, we were free.